Joining us on the program is the filmmaking duo behind the feature films Deadheads and The Wretched, the latter of which, a very successful horror film from IFC Midnight, is available now on demand and has been destroying it there and on the big outdoor screen. They are Brett and Drew Pierce. Gentlemen, thank you both so very much for being on the show with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys.
And before we jump in, we usually like to ask our guests kind of what gave them the bug initially to get into film and filmmaking. But I've read with you guys that it was very likely that your father kind of helped certainly facilitate that love with him working on some practical effects for Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead film. Was he or was that the impetus for you guys to just kind of fall down the rabbit hole, or was there some other movie or series or piece of pop culture that kind of made the impact?
No, it was that we just because we were kids. We were like, I was probably like 2 and Drew was like a baby, and my mom just let Sam and all those guys with my dad take over the house to finish the final effects sequence of Evil Dead for the summer. And they just destroyed the house. But Drew and I thought it was so cool. And we were like, oh, that's how you make movies. You invite all your friends over and take over your mom's house. And then you just do gory effects in the basement. So it was, we just always, the nice thing about it, just kind of imprinted us like, it's a DIY kind of mentality. You just, you can't get somebody to like, a studio to finance your movie, just figure it out and make it. So
so we did that all through high school, basically just destroyed our mother's house.
Yeah.
Brought our friends over, shot shorts constantly.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sean and I can relate to that as well. I know I can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, experimenting with effects, makeup, and doing horrible pranks on my poor mother. So kind of with that connection in the family, was it very natural for you to just kind of start running and making your own movies? And did you kind of feel like your dad was looking over you as you were making your first films as kids?
Yeah, I don't know if he was looking over us. I think it was such a long runway for us to get into film. We did so many different things. We worked at like the high school TV class show. So we'd produce like football games and, shorts for the local student council and all that kind of stuff. But we were also, when it kind of got into the later high school years, we started shooting basically like a feature every summer because we had a bunch of filmmaker friends. We were like, hey, what are we going to write? We going to make something?
Yeah. And there was a good chunk of us. So it was easy. It was like constantly, if it wasn't a short or something Drew and I were making, one of our other buddies was making, we'd go work on that. So we just had this like little mini like film school of guerrilla filmmakers. And we kept making stuff and renting out the local movie theater down the street. And like, we'd rent like spotlights in the sky and make all our parents pay $10 to come see our really terrible movie. But it was great. It was film school, and we just kind of taught ourselves everything for, those high school years and then into early college.
Yeah, I think our dad watching over our shoulder didn't come until we probably made our first sort of, I guess, grown-up feature. We moved out to LA and we were floundering and poor for years. And we decided to go back to Michigan to shoot like a $200,000 zombie comedy. It's our first movie, Deadheads. And, for that, we enlisted, we got our dad to come back and be our PA, and our mom did craft service. We basically put everybody we knew to work on that film because we didn't even have an AD. It was very scrappy.
Yeah. And when we say we took over the house, like we took all of mom's furniture out of the living room. We put up dry erase boards and
literally
turned it into like the production
hammered
office.
Dry erase boards into her living room wall, like, here we go. It was our battleground, and we had people sleeping in every corner of her house.
Yeah.
They were still living there, like 20 something plus crew members.
Yeah. We even had tents in the backyard for a couple people just because we were overflowing with crew.
Yeah, we like to call it Project Mayhem. Yeah, like Fight Club, because it was just this mess of people everywhere. Yeah. Like, what are we doing today?
Every morning, mom would just shove a breakfast sandwich into all of our friends' hands as we're getting out the door to like go shoot something. It was ridiculous, but it was a blast.
Right. And at night you beat the shit out of each other.
Exactly. Actually, I just fought for a bed. Half the time, like one of the actors would be asleep in my bed and I'd be like sleeping on the floor in the living room with a sheet.
Nice.
So it was fun.
In that DIY spirit, it sounds like Deadheads paid off and it kind of got you guys at least in the door, into more paid work on feature films, right?
Yeah. Not really. I mean, we both had worked kind of in the industry a little bit as like PAs and assistants. And I went to school for animation. So I sort of had like a little bit of a career. I was working on Futurama for like a year and a half at that point. And Brett had sort of weaseled his way into working at Family Guy as like a PA and writer's assistant. So we were kind of like, we sort of finally started to make a little bit of money and feel comfortable in LA, but we were like, we didn't come here to sort of work for other people. So that's when we basically went back to do Deadheads because we felt like we got to learn, we got to make our mistakes and make our own movie. And we did. And it was like film school for us. I mean, I feel like everything is led into the next thing, and Deadheads The Wretched would not have been possible without Deadheads for sure. We learned everything from how to actually set up production to techniques to speed up everything to also like the film festivals and the whole process of finishing a movie. There's so many things we learned.
We were still super broke when we finished Deadheads.
Yeah, well, we made the classic sort of filmmaker mistake is we paid ourselves zero. We both had saved up a little bit of money going into making that movie. And we were just so desperate to like make our sort of first real feature, but we had like a little bit of money for the budget, but not enough. We wanted to put everything on screen, so we paid ourselves nothing. And we went from having like probably like $10,000 or $15,000 each in our bank accounts to being like 10 grand in debt and back in LA paying rent every month. I mean, it was the best experience ever. Like I wouldn't trade it for our lives, and it definitely led to everything else. But Hollywood wasn't knocking down our door waiting for us to direct the next thing, and we knew that we'd have to make another feature. We felt like we had got our feet wet and learned a ton.
So we pretty much came back and just dug out of debt, getting jobs again. I worked in reality TV for a number of years, and Drew went back to doing storyboard gigs. And we eventually got out of debt, and we just kind of used Deadheads as like an example to get people to invest. Be like, we know how to do this. We, killed ourselves the last time, and it didn't totally work out, but we know the path now, or at least we promised that we do the path. And then we put the Wretched together based on, the people that invested in our movie would never invested in the Wretched if we hadn't made Deadheads already. That was a big plus. So.
No, I hear you. And I know what it's like to forget to pay yourself for the first couple times. We finally learned that lesson ourselves.
You think it's a good idea, but then you're eating beefaroni out of a can like 6 months later. You're like, man, I still got to edit the movie and I have no money for food.
Yeah.
Because you guys mentioned it, you both seem to find your way into animation in different aspects. Yeah. Did some of that and did some of the reality show producing and just it seemed like you guys have worked a lot of behind the scenes jobs on set. Did any of that kind of inform you guys to make you better directors?
Yeah, I mean, enormously. Like, I feel like I've been working as a storyboard artist and as an animator. I went to school for animation in Detroit. I feel like that's sort of been my main preparation for directing. And every day I sort of, even when I'm working on commercials, because I've worked on a bunch of features and Hollywood features and stuff, but every day you sort of get to practice directing as a storyboard artist because I'm working hand in hand with the director and trying to like figure out what the setups are for the next day and reorganizing the story and trying to make it come to life. It's funny because I don't get to see the finished product till like way later. But for me, it's kind of like how Hitchcock views it is like that's the most important process. The other stuff is hard and there's a lot of cool things that happen on set, but it's that preparation.
Yeah. And it was beneficial for me doing reality TV because reality TV is very like nuts and bolts producing and kind of organizing shoots. So I think I just realized going into the Wretched, if we're just way better planned out and we fill out all the positions that we were skipping on Deadheads and we just build this thing out to support us being creative. So Drew and I aren't stuck picking up the Taco Bell for lunch midday and coming back to shoot. We'll be able to put all our efforts into like pulling the movie off that we want to make instead of just juggling the problems. So that's what really helped with me. I was forced to become an organized like producer, which is totally against what I like or have any interest in doing. But I'm just so glad I did because it made it so that when we went in to do the Wretched, I was just a real stickler about, covering all the bases so that when we finally got to go shoot, Drew and I could ignore all the logistics of things and just make the movie.
Yeah. We produced this movie, we produced the Wretched and we hired producers to work with us as we were going into production. But I think Brett having all that experience sort of helped so much because when we made Deadheads, we didn't know anything about production. We didn't know anything about hiring people or having those tough conversations and figuring out rates and all that kind of stuff. And we had a producer that handled a lot of that stuff too. We obviously were involved in a lot of that, as well. So yeah, it was great to have some of that experience and sort of know what we're looking at. And we also hired a lot of people from our production experience. Like the main producer on our movie is Chang Tsang. He worked with Brett he actually was the production.
I was a production coordinator on something he produced, like this Chinese show we shot in San Francisco. And I was just like, this guy's crazy. He stays up all night and he makes sure the production gets finished and there's a good job. So I was always like, we got to hire him as our producer if we ever make another movie.
It sounds like both of you brought your own skills or connections with you and kind of made you more of a dynamic duo and directing pair, and you're each bringing something different to the table. From Deadheads and all the other things you had worked on together previously, did you develop a good system of collaboration for co-writing and co-directing?
Yeah, we've always kind of, with the writing aspect, usually like Drew likes to plot out and do a really worked out, like basically structure, like build out the entire thing in an outline. I tend to like to just take one shot at a first draft that sucks, like do kind of a vomit draft real quick just to kind of get, some other ideas out to see if anything unique sticks out of there, because for some reason this getting like tied into the structure too much takes the fun out of it for me the first time around. So we usually do like a crappy draft that I do a first pass on. There's usually some good ideas in there, but we need to rewrite it a lot. But then we just kind of like team up and just like restructure the whole thing, replot it with a second draft, and then just trade back and forth, sharing back and forth. But the process of shooting and making the film, Drew and I are just like kind of like preppers. We go over the script so many times until both of us can talk about it ad nauseum, and we just know every scene in and out. But we also, when we storyboard it, I sit down with Drew and he storyboards it, and I'm there the whole time, and we go through the whole thing and talk about the shots we want to have and how we want the movie to feel. So we just build everything out before we even start shooting. So by the time we're on set, we've talked about it and storyboarded it so much and shot listed the whole movie. It works out well because you can talk to either one of us and you'll always kind of get the same answer just because we're so on board with the premise and the idea.
Yeah, it's a little bit kind of the boring answer is that we kind of do everything together, everything together. So it's kind of like having two heads on set, which is so useful, especially because when you're directing, you're getting hundreds of questions that day and people are always challenging sort of like what you need for the day. Like, do you really need that prop? Do you really need to shoot that many shots? Do you need to do it this way or do a dolly in? Like everything that sort of takes time. And it's the thing that's so great about having sort of two heads that like love the content and the story that you're trying to tell is you always have to compromise in places, but like having an extra set of eyes on set to sort of tell you when you can't compromise, that you'll die on this sort of thing. Yeah. It's great to have that because it's really hard. You have to make these split second decisions where sometimes you're like, we have to cut 3 shots from the next 5 shots. Yeah. Is that even possible? And there's occasionally the times where you say like, nope, we're going way over today, guys, or like we're going to have to do it this way. Or
it's just nice to have backup when you need it instead of if you're the lone director and the producer's like, we don't have time. I could see how you would fold much easier. But if it's Drew and I, one of us will look like we're kind of like, oh, maybe we do need to. And the other one will look over like, nope, we can't.
I think especially now in the modern style of filmmaking, you have you don't have that many days to shoot. So every moment is precious. Brett and I are both obsessed with like our favorite films shooting schedule and how many days they had. Because every movie we love from the 80s and 90s shot over 40, 50 days. And most movies now most indie movies shoot even like crazy, like less than 15 days, which is nuts to us. But it's sort of one of those things that it's just so great to have two people on set when you're sort of like trying to make that process go as fast as possible.
Yeah, and speaking of the precious time, I'm sure it also comes in handy from a time management perspective to have two people that can work, right? One person can go talk to the actors while the other can go talk to the rest of the crew about something.
Yeah, that's always been beneficial. And Drew and I aren't like precious about anything, so it's easy to kind of split up and do whatever. And it's very easy for us to recognize that like one of us has a better handle on one particular element we're shooting or something to do with hair or makeup or costuming at the time. So it's there's no ego. When we just like split up, like go deal with that problem, I'll deal with this problem. Honestly, I don't know how people make movies without a co-director.
Yeah, the passion always wins out because there's some times where one of us is like, no, I know how this has to be. Like the other person's like, well, you take the reins, go ahead.
Yeah. Definitely tell when Drew's got an idea that's in his head and maybe I just don't totally get it, but I know it's going to work because he's so adamant about it and it works both ways.
Because he's drawn it over and over.
Yes.
Yeah,
that too. To our benefit, we had a DP, Connor Murphy, that shot the movie, The Wretched, with us. And he spent 3 weeks before we shot storyboarding the movie with us and shot listing it in Google Docs. So in a weird way, we almost had 3 directors. We had like a trifecta, a team that could always like steer what's going on no matter what and knew what we were doing.
Because every other time we've ever shot a movie, it was usually like we kind of download the shot list to the DP the day of. Even our first movie, it was kind of that process.
Yeah.
But with Connor, he knew, he actually helped us build sort of a master 500 and something shot list color coded for every day and how we'd break everything out before we even started shooting. So we knew what every day looked like, and it was sort of this like massive preparation, but it really helped us in knowing if we had to cut something is the most important thing, because you always have to cut things when you're making indie movies, and that can be death to a movie. You can't just cut a scene. Every scene should be crucial. Every shot should be crucial, but we at least knew if we were going to cut something, we knew what we were cutting and how it would impact the story because we had thought through it. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I'm still in the stage of my filmmaking career where I'm, sitting the shot list the day of. But that level of color-coded organization sounds like a dream. So I envy to be at that stage.
Well, that's all at Connor's benefit. Drew and I are not that organized.
Yeah, he was obsessive.
He built out the list, and we just communicated shots with him, so it was great.
Awesome. So how did you end up getting the Wretched off the ground? You talked a little bit about how, Deadheads was an example of the type of work that you could do, and you use that as kind of like a case study in your ability to direct and deliver a finished feature film. Can you talk a little bit about, how you got it from a script to actually being able to then shoot a film in your home state of Michigan?
Yeah, the first thing we did is we had the script and then we built out a lookbook. Drew did a bunch of nice original artwork because he's a character designer too. Plus we had some storyboards in there, but the lookbook just was a really great visual representation of what the movie would look and feel like.
We have a theory about Hollywood. Nobody reads scripts.
They like pictures.
Not a theory.
It's really hard. And even if you were to do the best pitch ever to somebody, if you're, it doesn't necessarily matter. People respond to images and they respond to sort of like this movie meets that movie because that's something they understand. And for us, our process, we still think it's just so vital, but it also helps us creatively. We like to build out really slick looking lookbooks. And a lot of that, some of it is concept art and doing storyboards and stuff, but most of it is just trying to find the perfect images online that represent your movie. And, we'll hunt, it's such an exhaustive process, but we'll spend, a week or weeks just searching for a couple images, and it's crafting. We basically make it look like a magazine for the movie. Like this would be the behind the scenes best version of, because when you look at it, you want people to, it's not like about the sort of the production of the movie or even us. It's about, here are the themes, here's the characters, here's the type of actors, here's the tone, like all the things, like this is the type of cinematography, all the things that excite you about a story.
You're just making them see it before they see it in a weird way. So, and we made other things with it. Like you obviously make a packet for investors so they feel safe, but we literally don't talk about that stuff because it's kind of boring. They just want to hear about how excited you are about the project and why it inspires you and why it's going to be great.
So we always separate those into two books. We do one that's like, here's the, the tax return info and the, the comps for other features of similar budgets and that sort of stuff.
And we made a sizzle reel. I don't know how effective that was, but it was really the lookbook. And we just started approaching a bunch of people about it that we knew out here in LA at production companies and studios. And there was a couple companies we were tied to for a couple of years trying to get it made where they were interested in making the movie if they could cast it up, which is like the age old story out here is they go like, we love your idea. It's great. We just got to attach this name and then it's financed. And we went down that road for a while, but it just wasn't really happening. And the option was running out with this one company we'd been with for about a year. And we had somebody even before that company who was willing to give us some startup capital to make the film. It was at the time, about a quarter of the money for the budget. And we came out of that option. We said, look, we don't think these guys are going to make this movie. We spent a year with them trying to cast it. It's just not working out. They tried to put Megan Fox in it, which was something that we thought fit the movie too well. And we just said, we took their budget and we slashed it down to as small as we possibly could. And we said, we can pull it off for this ourselves if you or any of your friends might be interested in financing the rest of it. And to their credit, like a week later, they said yes. And we were about 6 months out from shooting at that point. So it was a long process, and we kind of did a lot of waiting on other people trying to get it made at these production companies. But in the end, it was just kind of, us convincing independent investors that we could pull it off.
Right. The financing is always kind of one of the most challenging bits, of course, getting it to production. But what might have been some of the biggest challenges you guys experienced on set physically?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is, I think everybody feels like this when they make an indie film. This isn't like a normal story, but like we had such an ambitious project. We had children who can only be on set for a couple, basically like 4 hours at a time, and they have to be portal to portal, so back in their place. So you can only do a couple shots a day with the kids. And we had animals and we had creature effects and we had really elaborate sets. We had this entire cave set we wanted to build and sort of a decent number of location moves. So there were just so many challenges. I think for us, to be honest, like the biggest challenge, and it is like trying to pack in the ambitious shots that your like filmmaker sort of creative brain has crafted, you know, like you're thinking about Kubrick and how would he shoot this or how would this, and then you get on set and the rubber hits the road and you're just trying to figure out how can I get as much of that across because schedule and timing. Yeah. And I feel like that's the constant battle. I think filmmakers, like when you talk to an indie filmmaker in the midst or right after a production, they just sound like crazy people because you're just like, oh man, if I could have just pulled 10 minutes, if I could have talked to the makeup department faster and this and that, like it was a day-to-day challenge.
A lot of our big challenges was like, it's a horror film. So, night shoots aren't easy on anybody. But we also realized because we were shooting in northern Michigan that we didn't realize until we got it. This is just like, a thing we didn't realize till we got there. The nights in Michigan, because we were so far north, are very short. So you only got about like 7 hours and 20 minutes of actual nighttime. So that's a really short amount of time to shoot all your scary stuff and all the things you need to cram into those hours. But it was also, it's a summer movie. It looks nice and summery outside and warm. But we had to go there pre the summer season because that's when the town gets busy and we wouldn't afford to be there. So we were there like right after winter, like literally the snow melted like 3 days before we started shooting. And the snow was gone, but it was freezing cold. So we're all ice cold, and especially the actors, because they're wearing like shorts and summer gear for this fun summer movie. But we're all just like freezing and spending these nights curled up next to heaters while we're shooting this creepy horror movie. So a lot of the challenges were just being the elements and being outside constantly and just dealing with the cold and the short schedules and just pushing through all the long hours. So it was a fight, but I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
And the practical effects obviously are striking. Did you guys you knew you wanted to go that route when writing the script, I assume, but did you have to make some compromises due to the budget, due to other constraints to get what you wanted exactly?
To a certain extent, like we definitely couldn't do as much coverage or as many shots as we wanted to do with the practical effects. But for the most part, we got a lot of what we were excited about. Yeah, I mean, it was a great process. We basically got to collaborate with our makeup effects artist, Eric Horn, his real name, by the way. Yeah. It was a great process because I'm a character designer. My background's in that. And I've worked a little bit in makeup effects too, just sort of like on cheaper, bad horror movies when we first moved out to LA. So I knew a little bit about that process and foam latex and all that. So we actually did a bunch of concepts for the creature and had storyboarded. Originally, we storyboarded all the makeup effects sequences and practical effects sequences before he even came on. So when we met with him, it's like, here's the design. This is like sort of the rough idea, but we're totally open to other ideas. And here are all the pieces we need. Like, this is the exact angle and the exact way we want to see this sequence, which he was like relieved and excited, sort of, even though, he sort of had things laid out for him. He knew he could just like what our ideas were, because he says that like so often he's told to sort of fabricate things and then they want to shoot it from a completely different angle that they never planned, and it just makes the makeup look terrible.
I mean, they were challenging just because they're always tricky to pull off and they're slow. You slow down when you're trying to pull off an effect shot, but in general, all of them worked. I think there was only one. We had a scene where we wanted to like rip apart a bunny, and the scene never made the movie, but it was just one of those things where like, not Eric's fault by any means. It just didn't look the greatest. So it's a good thing the scene got out of the movie.
We had him, we had to prep everything. Yeah. We were shooting in Michigan, but he prepped everything in LA, and he had prepped these little mini cute bunnies that were rippable, and they were gruesome and cool. But then we actually, had to find bunnies in Michigan, and we found these giant fat bunnies.
They didn't match his skinny little bunnies.
They're actually like bunnies that were being overfed because I guess they were going to use them in soup was the plan. So we rescued 4 bunnies. We only needed 2. And just to jump ahead, the bunnies were not used in soup. We saved the bunnies and gave them to one of our PAs, kept them and is taking care of them now. But so the bunnies that we had never matched that. So it kind of impeded. We weren't going to be able to shoot that scene the way we wanted to. And we kind of adjusted. And, there were some limitations here and there. But overall, we kind of knew we were making a movie that if we short suited the effects at all, like the moments that we were excited about too much, we're not making the movie that people want to see. So we were really careful about those.
Fun. I mean, the funny thing about the effects is, despite it usually being the tougher and longer stuff to pull off, it's kind of the fun part. Everybody wants to see what you're doing because you're kind of, you're getting to be like super irresponsible and do something disgusting or gross or kind of like, make believe. So like, it just never feels like too bad when you're doing that stuff. I mean, you want it to work, but you get excited just because it's it's kind of what you dream about when you're a kid, when you want to like do some weird special effects. So.
Yeah, and I think some of the coolest effect scenes in the movie, it's hard to talk about without spoiling things in a way, and so I just want people to watch it and be surprised. But there's some really great moments towards the end, especially. But I think it ties back to the overall approach that you decided to take with the witch character. It's modern, but it also is based in a lot of historical lore. How did you end up, settling on your own distinct vision of the witch as a creature?
Drew and I had always kind of had a fascination with like witch folklore about the various witches around the world, from like the Baba Yaga to Black Annie, Jenny Greenfingers and all this stuff. And we really loved all of them. And we had some ideas initially that we would like take one of them and make the movie about that one witch. Like I think at one point we really liked Black Annie and we were almost like, let's call it Black Annie. But then we kind of dug into it and we were like, well, we don't want to stick to just her rules. We kind of want to add some rules of our own. And hey, this other witch over here, the Boo Hag, has some cool rules about like stealing people's skins and wearing them. So, but the one thing we did notice is that a lot of the witches around the world, like the various artwork and designs that we saw of them, were all similar. They all had these consistent visual looks of being kind of like sunken face kind of hag creatures. So eventually we kind of came around to the idea is like, let's just make one that kind of visually represents a lot of these witches that reoccur in a bunch of various myths around the world. And we'll cherry pick the rules from the couple of ones that we like. And we added the thing about her making people forget children just because we really liked that idea for the movie. But we just kind of thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if when people watch this movie that you might not know exactly what witch myth it's from when you watch it, but you might kind of in a weird way from the design and the look and the way she acts and moves around in the film, you might feel like you have some sort of familiarity with it, maybe because you had heard some of that folklore before. So that was kind of the thinking going into it, is that we could kind of give a face and a look and a design to all these witches from around the world.
Yeah, and I think that totally plays out. It's a movie that it's scary at times, very scary at moments, but then also is really fun. And I think a lot of that comes from playing into expectations that we have around witches. So besides folklore, what were some of the other inspirations or influences, whether that be, film or literature or comic books, that kind of took to The Wretched?
Like comic book wise, it was Hellboy comics, because there's a lot of really good kind of witch stuff in there that I like. That's kind of where I plucked Black Annie from first when I started reading about her, to kind of base some of the things on her. But for films, for Drew and I mean, it's a little bit of kind of everywhere. It's like everyone always makes the Fright Night comparisons, and that's a film that we love. And obviously there's the voyeuristic aspects. But for us, with the body horror elements, for us, it's even a little bit The Fly, and for a visual look, like just from a photography perspective, Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween was very much a guide for nighttime exteriors and stuff, and a lot of the interiors too. So, it's weird. I guess like we never, it's funny. We watch the movie now and everyone points out all our influences, and Drew and I realize that we don't really think about that much before we make the movie. It just becomes very apparent what we love when people go see the movie.
Yeah. The other two movies that we talked about a lot, and I think this is just sort of our sensibilities, is Jaws and Poltergeist, as we were making the movie, in that we really wanted the world to feel sort of comfortable and safe for a while. Because we've had so many horror movies over the years that like they're dripping with this creepy, sort of isolated feel right from frame one. And with this, the one thing that we sort of wanted to do to set it apart from a lot of common sort of modern horror movies is like, let's let people settle in and be in this like comfortable, idyllic vacation town. So there's a lot of Jaws in there for that aspect. And Poltergeist.
And you were saying about tone. We also were kind of like, it's okay for a horror movie can still be scary if it's fun, if it has fun moments and moments that are a little more playful or playing with your expectations. So when we went into it, our intent was to like try to make the movie feel fun wherever we could, because gradually the movie gets much darker towards the end. But we tried to take advantage of that earlier on, just because, like Drew was saying, we like a good really dark horror movie, but sometimes if you've seen 3 of those in a row, it can be pretty taxing. Like you kind of need to see something else with a different feeling. So we just kind of wanted to harken back to kind of doing like a movie that felt like a fun roller coaster ride as well as a horror film.
Yeah, it's cool to hear that you said you didn't necessarily wear the influences on your sleeve, but then people saw them on your sleeve after the fact. But yeah, the mishmash, I've seen a couple people say it had an Amblin feel to it, and after you saying Jaws and Poltergeist and the idea of like kids and divorce and stuff, I can see how they make the correlation, and it's not a bad comparison, obviously.
Yeah. It's a little our fault, though. We put our lead character riding a bike with a basket wearing a hoodie. It was
wearing a red hoodie.
It was blue instead of red.
Well, I think we also talked about our influences with our costume director. I love all the stuff she did, especially with Abby's dress. But I think she was really excited about like the Spielberg influences.
So she took it home for us too. So.
Oh, you guys are ripping Spielberg, not Stranger Things? Is that what you're telling us?
Oh, man.
That's an unfair swipe at that show. It's very popular. It's not bad.
Yes.
It's just people act like it's the first thing to ever make a John Carpenter, Stephen King, Steven Spielberg riff.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny. When I started watching that movie and everybody's in love with it, it took me a while to start like enjoying it because I was so sensitive to like, I know what this scene is. I know what this scene is. It's like,
that was me too. I was a little too fanboy in season 1. Be like, guys, he didn't have a Thing poster because that movie was actually a bomb and nobody watched it and didn't love it right away.
Yeah.
I was that jerk off.
You're like, you guys are all liars. I know what you're doing.
But then yeah, I gave myself over to it, enjoyed it like everybody else. But so The Wretched was one of those kind of early films that get in on the big drive-in trend right now. The drive-in will never die, and it's, as we said, with seen a resurgence and even becoming the #1 movie at the box office for over a month, which is, congratulations, by the way, to you guys. It's amazing. Thanks. What was the original distribution plan for The Wretched, and how did it actually change as a result of COVID-19? Like, did the drive-in idea truly come about more because of the situation, or was there an idea for a bit of a rollout with it?
Yeah, it was situational. It was originally going to be like a 10 to 15 theater kind of, indie rollout to like normal theaters. And then COVID hit, and we actually, for a moment, and we didn't want to sound like sort of, jerky filmmakers, but we thought that it wasn't going to get a release at all. But credit to IFC, they, basically found the drive-ins and said, like, I think there's enough that we could actually do like a rollout, like do like 12 theaters. And, we were apprehensive at first, but then, it played in the 12 drive-ins that first weekend, and it had this unprecedented turnout. I think partially a credit to the fact that we happened to make like a perfect drive-in kind of movie, but also people were just so desperate to get out of the house and see something new. And then each week after that, they kept doubling the number of theaters till it got to over 100 theaters.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was so weird because we just kind of every week, like, we're like, oh my God, that first week in those 12 theaters, man, we sold so many tickets. I can't believe it. And like every week we're like, this is the last week it's going to do better. This is the last week it's going to do better. And then we rolled into like, we were #1 for 5 weeks straight. And then we still we're still in theaters right now. It's like week 13 or something like that. We're still in like, I'm not a lot now. It's like 30 theaters, but it's insane. It just kind of kept going. And honestly, we couldn't believe it. And it was a little weird for us too, because with COVID going around, it's kind of dark times, and you feel a little guilty about being so happy and benefiting from it. But some people pointed out to us, like friends of ours, they're like, everything's really dark right now and sad. So it's like, if there's something nice happening to you, it's okay to celebrate that. And, at the worst, it's like you're giving people a safe excuse to kind of just go have a good time. So what's wrong with that? And that kind of put our heads in the right spot. But I mean, it's been really weird because, normally in a world, like if your movie blew up like this, you'd be like, I'm going to go celebrate with the cast and crew. I'm going to go see my friends. But you don't get to see anybody. You just kind of like get updates on your phone. Like, a lot of people are seeing your movie. So it's
Rap party on Zoom, guys.
Yeah. So it's this weird thing where you're just kind of like, oh, it's weird. I haven't left my apartment for 8 weeks and all this stuff's going on.
It kind of came out of nowhere for us because after like right in the first week, the IFC they've been a great partner. They lined up a ton of press, and we got a great review in Variety and in Hollywood Reporter and New York Times and LA Times. Like all of these great reviews dropped all at the same time, and we were like, whoa, this is blowing up, and it did pretty well. But then it was weird because IFC set up all these interviews, and all of a sudden the conversation turned from like, this is a cool movie, which we were getting for like 2 weeks, to like, what is it like to have this crazy success with drive-ins? Like everything was about the drive-in success.
Yeah. We were like, is it a success? I don't know what's going on.
We said at the top of the show, without a pandemic, for a small independent movie to make $2 million at the box office would have been a nice, thing to write home about. And you guys somehow did that in that. And anybody who's making you feel bad for feeling good, just a reminder, Jeff Bezos made $12 billion in like a single day a couple weeks ago. Be mad at the right people. Be mad at the right people. Don't be mad at these guys for having some success.
I'm going to point that out now. I'm like, but that Jeff Bezos guy. He's the real villain. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So did you actually have an opportunity to attend one of the drive-in screenings?
Oh yeah, we went to, because we're in LA, we went to the Mission Tiki. I actually went 3 times, which sounds really terrible, but I went the
No,
first.
it doesn't.
Yeah,
No, it
well,
doesn't. I would do the same.
Okay, good. Because I went and I was like so excited to be like under the stars, like watching a movie, and it was so relaxing and like fun, and I got to bring in my own snacks, which was like the best thing in the world. But it was just so cool because I hadn't been to a drive-in since I was a kid, and we kind of had like our unofficial premiere there. Like a lot of our cast drove out, we're all parked in our cars, 10 feet away from each other, wearing masks. Watching the movie, and we kind of thought that was going to be it. Like, oh, that was a fun night. This will play for like a week. And then it kept going. So I was like, I'm going to go to the Mission Tiki again. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, I'm still going to the Mission Tiki. so it was great. I mean, it was such a cool experience. And it's kind of surreal when you're watching a movie you made and you're seeing all these like teenagers pull up and set up their little like makeout sessions in the back of their car to watch your movie.
Yeah, afterwards, we usually like whenever we've made movies in the past, we like to go into like the men's bathroom and just sort of like listen to see if anybody's talking about the movie afterwards, because you want to hear the real opinions. But the drive-in, it was great. We could kind of like meander around and just try and listen to people at their cars at a distance.
Yeah.
And see what they thought.
You made it sound real creepy. You're like, we go into the men's bathroom and listen.
That did sound a little creepy, but I know what you meant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every filmmaker's dream, right? To just see how people engage and respond to their movies. So it's kind of cool to be able to do that in a different setting, and also probably felt a little almost asynchronous, right? It's almost like you're going back in time and watching a movie the way you might have as a child.
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to do that as a child. I know drive-ins have been decreasing over time, and so mostly I just hear stories about it from my parents, but I got to do a little bit when I was younger. Unfortunately, most of them are gone now, but hopefully that changes. Hopefully that changes the landscape. But it must have been such a weird experience.
Yeah, it was super weird, but I think there is something unique about it for sure. It's kind of funny. I was talking to some of my other filmmaker friends, and some of them just really dig it and the experience, but some of them were kind of like, oh, the picture's not great and the sound's not great. But I'm kind of like, that's okay. It's like it's just supposed to be kind of a unique, fun, enjoyable experience, and you can get the perfect picture and sound when the other theaters open up or you watch it at home. It's just it's a different thing. It's almost like, I think we always say it's essentially like camping out, which is just a unique experience for anybody to do.
So yeah, that's still playing in some theaters, as you said, which is awesome. If you guys can find a theater that's open or a drive-through especially, that'd be great. And it is available, I believe, right now on Hulu. And guys, is there anywhere else we can find the movie right now?
I mean, you can rent it on all the renting VOD services. It's on Hulu currently, and the DVD and Blu-ray release comes out on August 11th.
All right, great. Yeah, check out The Wretched, and we'll be back in just a few with more from Brett and Drew Pierce right after this. Becky, we talked a lot about Scare Package on here, as you know, but did you also know that you can now show your love for, beyond gushing about it on social media, show your love for your favorite Shudder original meta horror comedy anthology from Paper Street Pictures?
I can? No way. Tell me how.
There are a couple of ways. One, if you want to wear Scare Package, there is now a line of awesome t-shirts available on Fright Rags. That's fright-rags.com. They're kind of the premier apparel outlet for horror movies. They've done, all the big ones. You can find Halloween and Friday the 13th lines on that site. But yeah, there's a couple cool options of Scare Package shirts on there.
I have like a third of my closet dedicated to Fright Rags, and my sock drawer. They sell socks. I mean, you need like Evil Dead socks, Halloween socks, trick-or-treat socks. They got them all.
Agreed. And we are pleased also to announce that there is an official Paper Street store now live, and it has its own Scare Package collection. There is no physical media options there yet as far as Blu-rays and DVDs, but those are in the works. What we do have for sale includes Scare Package stickers, the one sheet of the film's kick-ass poster, an enamel pin, a bumper sticker, the Orange Skull lollipop from recent guests, the Andujar Sisters segment, Girls Night Out of Body, as well as Rad Chad's Horror Emporium membership card, which has a working phone number you guys should definitely call. And a killer.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You'll have to purchase it and follow the instructions.
Okay.
A killer trading card pack featuring almost every character from the film as well.
Is there a goo guy?
There is a goo guy.
Yeah. I love goo guy. All right. So you've been telling me all about this. How do I get these fine products so I can purchase them and stare at them lovingly in my own home?
Well, there is a way to do that, and it is paperstreetstore.com. It's the place to find all that was mentioned and some other scare package goodies. There'll be more to come soon. Once again, that is paperstreetstore.com. We will keep that link going in the show notes of the program as well, and you can always find show notes and links on the episode pages at paperstreetpodcast.com. So give the store a look, grab some scare package merch, tell them Rad Chad sent you. paperstreetstore.com.
I'm going right now.
Welcome back, gang. Sean Talley and Becky Sayers here talking with Drew and Brett Pierce. You know what? Drew's name's going to go first. Brett's had it good long enough being alphabetically first. So Drew and Brett Pierce. Guys, it's time for the Rapid Fire 15. This is something that we do with guests. It's kind of like our own version of the Proust questionnaire a la Inside the Actor Studio, but we kind of try to tailor it to your tastes and stuff we know about you. So who decided to go first of the two of you?
I don't care. I'll go first.
Yeah, Drew will go first.
Perfect. And of course, you can change it up if Drew needs more time to think. But the whole point of these is to have fun and not overthink them. So everyone kind of gets weirdly nervous about this part. They're like, oh my gosh. And they hear it's called the Rapid Fire 15.
Yeah, it's not really rapid fire. It's also not a cool test. You're not getting graded. Just first thing that comes to mind.
Cool. All right, I'll kick it off. What movie do you think you have seen the most in your life?
Jurassic Park.
Star Wars.
What's your favorite bad movie? Not a guilty pleasure, but just a movie you know is just terrible, but you love it anyway.
Nothing But Trouble.
Mine's the exact same. I love Nothing But Trouble.
That's a bad movie.
What is your favorite horror movie franchise?
Oh, man. I would say it might be Evil Dead.
Yeah.
For me.
Mine's Child's Play. I mean, there's some great ones in there. There's some terrible ones, but I love it. I'll watch every one. I still rewatch them all the time.
Nice. I think those are two unique ansers so far.
They are, yeah.
We've
haven't
asked
got
this
those
question
yet.
a few times. Yeah.
How about your favorite horror movie subgenre?
Probably the home invasion movie.
Yeah. I think I just like possession movies. It's probably the one I'm sucked into the most. So.
Is that what scares you both? For me, home invasion movies are probably the most terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, for home invasion, I mean, Drew can speak to that, but for demonic possession stuff, it just and makes sense with our movie. When somebody's not who they say they are, really freaks me out.
And that kind of plays into the home invasion stuff. Funny Games freaks the shit out of me. Yeah, just something about people that just kind of have control. I mean, that's what horror movies are. They're just loss of control. And I think those feel the most grounded and real. Like, you realize, my neighbor could come over and murder me for sure. Like, there's nothing to stop them except for their own sort of conscience.
We got a home invasion movie we really want to make at some point, too, if anyone ever lets us do it. We think we got a good hot take of a horror movie. So, yeah.
Oh, that sounds... Ooh, I want to know more about that. Okay. What is your favorite John Carpenter movie?
The original Halloween.
Yeah, it's the same with me. I live and die by that movie. Yeah.
We love all of it. We just saw Big Trouble in Little China at the drive-in actually last week. I love his movies so much. Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous. I want to go to a drive-in.
I was at that one too. That was the double feature with Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, Beyond Fest is doing the coolest stuff at the drive-in, man. Showing all the old trailers and stuff. It's just, and Big Trouble's my childhood.
How about, you mentioned this man a few times. What's your favorite Steven Spielberg movie?
Probably Jurassic Park, to be honest. But I'll just say my favorite sort of underrated is Empire of the Sun. That's in the top 3 or 4.
Good.
So good.
I love Jaws. I probably watch Jaws 5-6 times a year. So.
Yeah, I feel like Jaws and Jurassic Park are the two so many people ping pong back and forth with, and it's the same for me. And yeah, I think Sean's answer is Jaws and mine is Jurassic Park, so I get it.
The other underrated one for us is we're just such Spielberg fanatics, to be honest, but is Catch Me If You Can.
I knew that was. I was like, he's going to say Catch Me If You Can. I know it because I agree fully that Empire of the Sun might be his two that don't get in that upper echelon as much as they should.
Yeah.
All right, who is your all-time favorite director? If it's not Steven Spielberg, I don't know. Maybe it is.
God, that's painful. Yeah, it's probably Spielberg.
Yes.
I feel we worked at at a very indie video store all through college, and we were always like just ridiculed for like loving Steven Spielberg when everybody wanted to love the most obscure filmmakers.
Drew and I would always be in this room where people would be talking about film and they'd talk about who's your favorite filmmaker. Like, don't bring it up because they're just going to ridicule us for loving Spielberg so much. But it's always been Spielberg.
He's one of the most experimental filmmakers of all time. That's the thing I'll say about Spielberg is people say like, oh, it's just another Spielberg movie. It's sort of down the middle. But everything he makes, like a lot of his stuff, it's been so risky and all over the map as far as genre. Like, it's really cool stuff.
Right. The man who made Schindler's List and Jurassic Park in the same year has no range. They're right.
Yeah. What a hack.
Assholes. As directors, what would be your dream project to direct? Be it an original idea or an existing IP, a remake, what have you?
Oh, man. I want to make our werewolf movie. We've been pitching it like crazy. We've got another hot take, as Brett would say. We've got a werewolf movie where we feel like we've sort of found a completely new way into that subgenre, that nobody would expect. And werewolf movies, I think, are more guilty of like the same sort of tropes, like the same story beats every time. Like somebody wakes up naked in the woods. They realize that they're, am I killing people? It's a lot of the same sort of stories. And we feel like we have a really original sort of way in.
Yeah. IPs always can be fun, but I think Drew and I are just drawn more to doing an original idea just because it's kind of like the unknown. You get to kind of like try to prove yourself, and that's kind of more exciting in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
With that, Brett wants to make Child's Play 8.
Yeah.
I wouldn't shy away from making a Child's Play movie. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think it'd be a blast. I mean, as long as I can get Brad Dourif back and do an animatronic puppet, I'm down.
All right, so maybe this answer, I might already know it, but what is your favorite fictional monster? Either in film, literature, comic books. It can be a generic type like a werewolf, as an example. Do you have a favorite monster?
Favorite fictional monster? I would say, honestly, it's probably The Witch. I think that's why we made The Wretched. I think that was like my favorite. And I always, I was in love with the witches, the Roald Dahl witches. And I always wanted to sort of elaborate and figure that out.
Yeah, I really like the idea of doing a Jekyll and Hyde thing. I just love the idea of and I think I like more of the concept that like when it goes to being Hyde, it's more of a monster, but there's something about that I just think super cool that I'm into.
Oh, I got another one, and we might make a movie about this someday, but yeah. I love Sam Hain. As a real Ghostbusters, he's probably my favorite monster, like the big Jekyll, like the big lantern-headed sort of ghost. Sam Hain, the king of the spirit world.
Yeah, the king of Halloween. We tried to write 3 different stories about Halloween about Sam Hain just because but they kind of covered that with Trick or Treat, so it's a little tricky.
Yeah, but we have a completely different way.
You guys had mentioned comics as well. Do you have a favorite comic book series or character even?
I know mine.
Probably. Yeah, I'm Batman for sure. I love Batman. The animated series was like the reason I got into animation, the reason I wanted to make movies. We used to basically go home every day and record Batman the animated series and then rewatch it 4 times afterwards. Yeah, that was our childhood.
For me, I love Hellboy. I have a complete run of every Hellboy comic and spinoff, so I'm a freak for it.
Yeah, as a kid, I remember thinking Mike Mignola's art. I wasn't a fan because art's usually your first way into comic books. But once he hit Hellboy and it kind of opened up, he wasn't necessarily the greatest superhero artist, but his Hellboy is perfect. I'm such a fan as well.
Yeah, I love horror superhero stuff. That's just something that's fun. I mean, and definitely the Hellboy comics tend to lean more towards the horror, which I just always dug.
Right.
All right. What is your most favorite concert experience?
I know mine.
I think probably Weezer when I was a kid.
Mine's Weezer. So when the Green album came out and they did a secret show in downtown Detroit and somehow I got in, that was the second coming.
All right, this is getting eerie. It's like I'm looking at Mayor's Becky. Do you remember on our test episode I said the exact same thing that they did a secret show at the Whiskey A Go-Go here?
Oh. Yes, I did.
Same exact thing. And I was like, it was the experience.
All been in the same room and just never actually met. I feel like there's been
brother.
3 instances of that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was waiting for them to say LA. I was like, oh my God, this is too eerie. I didn't also watch Batman every day after school and then watch it again after it was over. But yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's not that it's necessarily. I saw them again in an arena show when they were kind of co-headlining with Foo Fighters. I remember thinking it was not nearly as unique or special. But yeah, that Whiskey A Go show, much like yours, was a small, intimate venue, and I'm 10 feet away from them all, and everybody's singing every word, every song. It was just a cool
I thought the place was gonna like explode or fall apart because people were just going crazy, and it was so small, but it was just so cool because they'd been gone for so long. It just felt like no way they're still around. So it's so cool. Yeah.
And now we wish they stayed gone.
Yeah.
What would be your guys' walk-up music, like your entrance theme for your TED Talk, or if you were a fighter or a ball player?
Oh man, I feel like it'd probably be like "Lose Yourself" Eminem. That's just sort of like the generation we come from. We're from Detroit. That was like the anthem of everybody.
Yeah, it's like, you
as
feel
lame as that sounds, but it gets me hyped up.
I feel like I listen to that every time we're like trying to make a project or we're just about to go make something, which is so ridiculous, but it's like the anthem for anybody from Detroit that's trying to punch their way
But it also
out.
sort of is like, it's the creative anthem for like a guy struggling and he's like, I've got the skills, I can do it. So it's always sort of paired well with us.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to make an indie movie.
Well, and Drew and I grew up off of 6 Mile and Grand River, so like 8 Mile has a special spot for us. So yeah.
I can totally see you like the montage in my head as you're, writing or working on your movies or something and the music's playing.
Yeah.
Some dorky white bearded guys just
Nodding to the beat.
breaking down the sand.
All right. Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Oh man.
I don't. I hate karaoke. It's my hell. I've gone to those like Korean karaoke parties or whatever. I'm a terrible singer. That's why it's
So do
my
you
hell.
just
But
watch
also,
people?
I do watch people, and it can be fun if you're at a distance. But like, if you've been to those karaoke bars where they give you, and I love I love the Sapporos, but like, you go into this small room, and all your friends who think that they're good at singing sing extra loud and are just hammered. It's like my own personal hell.
Mine's Run Around Sue. I don't know why. I just love Run Around Sue. It's just like, it's snappy, and I start to sing it. Well, you know what it was? I took 2 years of ballroom dance, and they made us ballroom dance that. Like, do swing dance to it over and over again, so I think it's just, like, stuck in my head.
Now it's in my head. Thank you. Yep. This is a Becky question that's gotten some really impassioned responses when we've done it. She asked you to kind of basically play F, Marry, Kill with some food. This go around, she's asking you guys to kill a food. One of these must go: hamburger, hot dog, or French fries.
Ooh.
Hot dog.
Oh, man. Yeah, hot dog. I like a good hot dog, though.
Yeah, but
it's hard to imagine life without any one of these things.
Yeah. Because I still like hot dogs that I even like crave crappy like gas station hot dogs that are on the little spinner. Like every once in a while I pull over, I'm like, oh, I need to get one of those.
Was this just
Or
a kill?
corn dogs.
Mary F.
No, it's not F, Marry, Kill. It's really just eliminate one. Sorry.
Okay.
Because I would marry the hamburger.
Like, I already have this worked out.
Yeah, we'll figure out the other.
All right. So speaking of food, after quarantine has lifted and you're able to go out and enjoy yourself, what is the very first restaurant that you're going to go sit down at and have a nice meal?
Ooh.
I mean, it's Yen Sushi for me. It's the sushi place right down the street. It's just the best.
Yeah, I'll probably go. There's a place called Franklin and Sons down the way from me where I'm at, and it's just like a nice little bar with like craft beers, and they have like super cheesy duck fat fries. It's delicious.
Ooh, duck fat fries
Yeah.
are so good.
So good. I've driven up there just like I just need duck fat fries right now. So.
I've just been quarantined like my date place with my wife, and we've been quarantined with our 2 kids. You guys know what that's like. And that's just sort of the one place we always go on a date. So it'd just be nice to have a night away. We don't have babysitters right now, so we don't get that.
Yeah, we know the struggle. If I may, that's the end of the official questionnaire, but I have a bonus one because you have mentioned the Michigan connections a few times, and along with Eminem. Who do you think is like the all-time greatest musician to come out of Michigan, since Detroit has quite a few famous folks?
Oh, man, there we go.
Are you guys part of the Kiss Army?
No, we're not part of the Kiss Army. And I don't even love his music, but Kid Rock, when we were kids, would just like hang outside of his house and invite people up to his house for beers, just like random fans all the time. And I wasn't even nuts about his music, but I always loved how open he was with everybody and so nice to
Yeah, it was
everybody.
always really cool, even though he does all these like conservative rallies now and all that kind of stuff. Like he was sort of great.
He was like this local nice guy. So I think that's what I liked.
I mean, you got to take like Madonna or something. She's from Michigan.
Yeah, I know.
Or there's also
White Stripes.
White Stripes.
Yeah, the White Stripes.
Jack White. Yeah.
Yeah. They actually they worked nearby where we grew up, so they used to come to my video store and rent movies from me, and I'd give them to them for free when they were broke and not famous.
That's awesome. No, I mean it's an embarrassment of riches. Like Alice Cooper, I mean Ted Nugent sucks, but you know the entire Motown catalog
is an amazing song. Okay.
Yeah. I think the lead singer of the Eagles went to our high school.
Yeah, I weirdly had to interview in high school Ted Nugent and Metallica for our TV station that we ran.
Wait, you had to or you got to interview Metallica?
But it was kind of like they sent me to Silverdome to do it, and it was kind of funny because I didn't really know Ted Nugent at the time. Like I was kind of familiar with him, and Metallica were such jerks that I was like, Ted Nugent is awesome. So it was such a weird experience. I was like, these guys are crazy and they're mean to everybody, but Ted Nugent's like laid back and cool.
That's amazing.
Now they're both mean to everybody and terrible.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Ted Nugent changed, Metallica stayed the same.
Well, I mean, hey, you got to be in a band together for that long. You're probably not completely with it anymore or a real person anymore. So.
True. I just hope that Jack White returns the favor and licenses his music to you for your movies for free.
Yeah, he totally should, man, because I cut them a lot of deals on really bad late fees. So.
Amazing.
That's a good story, though. You teased us a bit. Can you tell us what's coming up next for you?
We're hoping our werewolf movie. That's what we're trying to get going. We're just into it because it's like a new take on kind of getting into that story, and we kind of call it like Jaws in the Snow, but with a werewolf.
It's called Muzzle.
Yeah, it's called Muzzle. So I hope that's the next one, but I don't want to spoil the cool twist. So, but that's the one we're jazzed about. Drew's done a bunch of character designs for it, and we just built out the story, and we just know it's the thing we should do next because we feel so good about it.
Yeah, color us intrigued. Yeah. I love everything you said. Every word got cooler.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I think last time I talked with both of you back at Fantasia, we were talking about dog soldiers and things like that. And so then I got all excited about your movie, and it stuck with me. I'm like, oh, I want to see that. I hope it happens because I want to go pay money and see it at a drive-thru or a real movie if we ever get back to the real movie theaters.
Yeah, that's what we feel like. We're always like pitching when we pitch the story. We're like, and people want to see the next werewolf movie. Like people are desperate. Like the last 3 or 4 we've gotten have been kind of terrible. Like the last
hard
werewolf
to do well.
There's aspects that are good, but like they did the Anthony Hopkins like Wolfman one that gets kind of like bad towards the end, and they did the Van Helsing werewolf, and we've gotten we actually talked to the producer of Underworld, which some of those are okay, I guess, today, but
we'll get there hopefully. I mean, the worst part is you're always getting told, like, do you guys want to reboot this? And you're like, that's a really good movie. I don't want to remake that.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's just funny how many times you hear like they want to remake this, and you're just kind of like, ooh,
that's a great movie.
That's a great movie. You're like asking me to lose.
Yeah, it may as well be like, let's remake The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Right. They should be remaking movies that had great concepts but weren't executed very well. And there's so many great examples of those from especially the 80s and the horror scene. There's so many like cool movies that just didn't quite get it right.
I want to see them remake terrible movies.
Yeah. You're totally right about that. If they just repitched some of those bad ideas, or if they were just ones that didn't get pulled off so well because budgets were hard or something, that like there's an opportunity in there instead of like, hey, remake Jaws but make it better.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can find these guys in 5 years making Jurassic Park the reboot.
Yeah.
Wouldn't turn it down.
Hey man, I promise you there'll be more practical dinosaurs in that movie than there's been recently.
Brett's going to engineer a dinosaur for us.
I'm going to build a full-size dinosaur.
I mean, you guys can attest this. It's the hybrid of CGI and practical that made that, I think, some of those effects still hold up so well today.
Oh, yeah. I've heard the new one, they're trying to do more practical mixed in with that, which I think is the key, and hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, there's kind of, we always talk about this with our thing, but there's this magic trick when you're trying to make, like with digital effects, you can make them amazing, but the thing is the way you shoot practical effects tends to lend itself to a style of filmmaking that's more exciting and mysterious and reveals things. Whereas whenever there are like digital effects, it's kind of like, look at this big, cool, crazy transformer, you know?
Yeah.
You lose the magic because of that. But it's not because the effect doesn't look good. That's the thing people, I think, get wrong.
Yeah, I think they're just going into it. There's something great about having to hide the seams or the things off camera that don't look good, but just showing like the good part of the arm of the monster. It makes you get more creative on how you tell the story. So, if they think that way while they're doing digital effects, I think the movies turn out better.
And that's why I'm so excited to see your werewolf movie when it gets made.
Oh,
because I think you'll.
Thanks. Us too. That's the same thing. We always have to explain how much you're not going to see a full-on werewolf all the time and how you see him in parts and pieces.
Oh yeah, that's what makes it scary.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Cool. So if people want to follow you and kind of track your career and maybe get some updates, where should people follow you online?
I'm at Jackstar Grundy on Instagram, which is a weird name. Probably just find me if you look at my name easier. But there's also at the Wretched thing where we just post a bunch of behind the scenes stuff about the Wretched and plug in a bunch of stuff about what we're working on too. But yeah, at Jackstar Grundy for me.
Yeah, and I'm just at Drew Draw on Instagram. Kind of the only thing I do anymore. Social.
They can find us on Facebook too. We're kind of everywhere. We'll chitty chat with anybody. It's because we just like talking about movies too much. It saves us from doing it to Drew's wife and my girlfriend. I think are a little sick of hearing about movies. So it's nice,
especially in the quarantine.
Yeah. It's just like, hey, I shut up. I don't care how it's made.
My baby and my wife are so tired of hearing pitches about horror movies. Horrific events.
All right. No, both of you guys, we appreciate the time very much. And yes, check out Brett and Drew on social media. We'll link to that in the show notes at paperstreetpodcast.com as well. And yes, gentlemen, thank you for the time. Check out The Wretched. Like he said, on Hulu. It's available for rent right now, and it'll be on DVD. I believe you said August 11th, correct?
Yeah, August 11th, DVD and Blu-ray.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Right. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.